Welcome to Levels of Connection, where we discuss how human connections work and why they're so important. Welcome to Levels of Connection. I'm Stefanos Papadopoulos, and my guest today is Fiona Ross. Fiona is known as the Queen of Kings, and she specializes in supporting male leaders on a global basis. I love the way that Fiona describes the movement of energy during the connecting process. You'll notice we did have some internet connectivity issues during the episode, but it was all good in the end. Take a look and enjoy. And hello, Fiona Ross.
Hello,
Welcome.
hello.
Welcome to Levels of Connection. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm really good today. Thank you.
Thank you for being on this channel, which is dedicated to exploring human connections, how and why they work, and how important they are to us. First of all, let me introduce you to our viewers. Fiona Ross is known as the Queen of Kings. And what you really do, if I had to say in one sentence, is that you draw the power of male leaders on a global basis.
That's
Fiona,
right.
welcome. Welcome again. It's a real pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. And what an interesting subject to discuss, because it is vital to all of us as human beings, right?
Mm, yeah, and it all comes up from being curious as to how people connect, how they relate to one another, and it's an endless subject that we can keep exploring over and over again. And we're going to be bringing obviously experts, coaches, leaders as yourself, therapists, healers, writers, people from all different backgrounds, and getting their take on this subject. And I really appreciate you being here. So talking about connecting, what does connecting with other humans even mean to you? It's such a broad and specific subject.
Well, it is. And as you asked that question, what does it mean? As I sort of said just now, it's a vital component of our humanity. You know,
Mm.
if we're not connecting, I mean, just go back to the pandemic when we were limited with how we could connect. And, you know, I can't imagine what some people went through if they were alone in that experience and not having physical connection to other human beings. So I think we probably underestimate how important connection is
Mm.
for us as human beings, to feel connected with another human being. I don't think there's a more special experience than to feel really connected with another human being.
Yeah, yeah. Love the way that you express that. And also what we've all been through, during the pandemic, and now, we've been out of it for a while, but we sort of fall into taking things for granted again, until, it wasn't nice that big shakeup that happened, but, when you look back, it was a big lesson for all of us. How did you manage that period? Obviously connecting before, during, and after. How was that transition for you?
I was very fortunate, so I wasn't alone. Um, but my whole business had to. I think the word that came into was pivot. I had to pivot my business, and it was actually at that time that you and I first met.
Hmm.
And I think the connections that some of us were able to make on Zoom. I mean, this has been a lasting connection, a lasting
Oh yeah.
friendship that we've created. We've only ever met once in person. So thank goodness we had Zoom, really, to be able to change the way we connected with people. And for me, the Zoom experience, because most of my work, it did change my business. My business expanded, and I talk to people all over the world now. Whereas prior to the pandemic, I had a local business where people would come and visit me in an office.
Yeah.
And creating a level of connection on Zoom has been really an interesting experience, because I believe you can create as powerful a connection with somebody across a screen as you can in person. It's different, but it doesn't have to be less powerful.
Mm. What was that first virtual session with a new client, or getting to know new clients?
Well, I think in the pandemic, everyone was so grateful for the for the connection. It wasn't actually that difficult. I see it more now, where certainly in the corporate world, I'm experiencing a lot of my clients saying there's a huge drive to bring people back to the office, and there's a whole set of beliefs around what's possible in person and what's possible virtually.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, it was with a client on Friday, and we were discussing, how do you have the same gravitas and impact in a board scenario, and how can you set that up, that if you've got people attending virtually in a hybrid meet, if you have somebody who's, or an organization that are wanting to create that connection in a boardroom, but you have people coming in virtually as well, there's a whole etiquette, I think, around Zoom meetings. Simple things like have your camera on. Do not be multitasking at the same time. Be as present as you would be as if you were in the room. And for the people that are attending virtually, don't present the slides on the same monitor as they're attending on, so they don't just suddenly disappear into being a little tiny icon at the bottom of a slide presentation. Yeah. So it's how do you retain that inclusivity of participation and have everyone, everyone wants to be seen, heard, and understood. So how do you maintain that? It's only when we feel that in a connection that connection actually is sustainable.
Mm-hmm. And I love the fact as well, because you talked about your experience and with male business leaders and boardrooms, and you also had other careers as well. And how did connecting help you through the different careers that you've had?
So as you say that, all my careers have been based on how I connect with people, whether it's been creating clients for a business, for my own business. I've had a lot of, I've been a hypnotherapist, a coach. If I even go back to my very early days, I trained as a hairdresser, and building a clientele is based on connecting. And in fact, I used to teach. I taught for a variety of different organisations, but I used to teach for L'Oreal, and I did that in London. And I also did it in India. And one of the things that I always tried to land with the people I was working with was, I can teach anyone how to cut hair. There's a technique, there's a how to do it. But it really boils down to the connection you have with the person as to whether they're going to come back again, whether you're going to
Mm.
create a relationship that means you're going to be their go-to hairstylist, coach, hypnotherapist, whatever it is. We as human beings, I think we rely on this connection that maybe isn't conscious always, but even down to a nice restaurant. There's lots of restaurants you can go to and have a nice meal. What is it that makes you go back to your favorite restaurant? And it's going to come down to the connection you have with the people that run it.
And the relationship that you develop.
Right.
Do you do you have a process that you want to share around connecting? Either, you know, something that you do in a systemic way or in a way of your own that.
I don't think I've ever really analyzed what I do particularly. I think I've always been a confident connector. I've always been somebody who can pretty much walk into any room and start a conversation. It doesn't phase. I'm not a wallflower. And I think it comes down to having a keen interest in other people.
Mm,
But
mm,
the part that I'm really flexing at the moment is listening. Our ability to listen from a space where we're not just waiting to talk, from a space where we've got no clutter in our listening, so we can really hear the other person. There's so many levels to how we listen,
mm.
and I find that really exciting.
Now
What are
talk
you
to me more
listening?
about that.
Well,
Mm,
it's what thread do you pull on? Somebody's speaking and they're telling you a variety of things, stories largely. And when you observe other people's conversations, networking is a perfect place to observe how people just want to come in to tell you about their product and why they're there, and they're not actually listening to the person in front of them. But when you truly listen to another person, it's almost as if they lay out I want to say like a carpet of threads, and you as the listener get the choice as to which thread you want to pull on. Which one do you want to question? Which one do you want to find out more about that person by pulling on? And that's just a fun game. There
mm.
doesn't have to be um, a reason. It's just to listen and connect and give them that feeling that they've been seen, heard, and understood.
And you really enjoy that.
Yeah, I play with it now. I think I used to be a person that just waited to tell them what I know.
Mm.
And now many coaches have told me to give up the need to know and get curious. And that's such a fun game to really take me out of the equation
Mm.
until it's my turn, because usually a conversation is something that goes between two people. But to just get really curious and just pull on those threads.
So what was the journey like to go from, wanting to pitch your own point of view versus, you know,
Yeah,
being in the conversation and listening and being curious? Talk to me a little bit more about that.
I think I've always thought I've been a seeker of knowledge. There's a whole raft of books behind me. I've done many, many, many courses and listened to many great speakers, and
Hmm.
I've always sought knowledge. And then when I've found that, it just logged me out and logged me back in again.
Oh, now you're in twice. Oh, there's two. There's more Fionas. The
Oh, I've
more the
only got one of
merrier.
me.
Oh, I'm seeing two. It's all good. We can
Oh well,
continue.
one of us will be working.
Oh, now there's only one of you. See?
Okay, so you're doubling
Yeah,
up.
it's challenging our curiosity, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, so you'd asked me about what that looked like. So yes, I being a seeker of knowledge, and when I had found something, I then wanted to share it with people. So I
Mm,
developed
mm,
a desire to help by giving people what I'd found. And I think in my
mm.
journey through getting better at the craft of coaching, the art of coaching, has moved me into a world to realize there's there is maybe still space for educating people, but actually listening is far more powerful for them to discover their own truth, because there is nothing to fix.
Oh yeah.
Really, really seeing, coming from that space of innocence of, we're all just bumbling through, doing our very best to live a good life.
Hmm.
Um, and if we can peel back the layers and help somebody see their own greatness, that's the gift. I can't tell you how to be great. You have to discover it for yourself. And I can help you more by listening to you
Hmm.
and then asking great questions than I can by trying to hold it up in your face and go, but it's here. Can't you see it?
How did you feel the level of connection with the new found, knowledge and approach of what you just described? You know, how was the connection before? How was the connection after in the new way that you're approaching it?
I suppose the proof is in the business,
Mm,
being more successful as a
mm.
coach comes along with being a more powerful coach.
So there's
Um,
also tangible benefits to it.
from a business perspective, absolutely,
Okay. Okay.
absolutely. And I think if leaders across the board, I mean, my clients are generally C-suite execs. Depending on the size of the company, will depend on where they are
Mhm.
in that hierarchy. But vice president, senior vice president, C-suite, that kind of guy. And through their ability to connect with their team will impact every level of the industry, every level of their organization. And it has the potential to, make the difference between them and their competitors. It can reflect really significantly in their profits,
Mm.
in who they show up as a business, and that comes from the top.
Yeah. So that's a really good point. And so how do you help people? How do you help your clients, your leaders, to develop this into a habit that has an impact in their lives?
So a lot of my work now has really it really centers on introducing them to who they're being, and the
Mm.
congruence of their state of being and their actions impacting their outcomes. I think, I don't think it's news to anyone to know that people don't leave bad jobs, they leave bad managers.
Mm,
They leave bad if they're not. It's the relationship they have with their senior people. So if the top of the organization are incongruent with who they're being and what they're asking of their people, that mismatch is going to cause ripples. So getting people to understand at every level of their leadership, whether it's in a business or whether it's their leadership, their personal leadership, things like integrity, being your word, knowing how to deal with, when you mess up, when there's a mess on the table that needs clearing up, being the one who's happy to take a stand for that.
mm.
Um, it for me, I've really begun to understand or do understand. It's never a how-to problem. It's always a, who do you need to be to create that in your world, whatever it is you wish to create.
How do busy leaders on an international level relate to that? How do you present it?
Through conversation, through connection, um, through illustrating that it's really an inside-out game, not an outside-in game. It's very easy to blame the team or to blame the economy or to blame the market or to blame something out there.
Mm-hmm.
But when a person or an organization can start asking the question, who do I need to be to create what I want to create in the world? It
Mm.
starts to dissolve the it's not our fault, we have no agency, to it dissolves that to allow for personal empowerment and agency over the results that they're getting.
I want to take you back now. How were you as a child connecting?
So my mother tells a story. I don't remember this, but my mother tells a story of, I was about 2 years old apparently, and I think we were waiting for my father at the station or something. And there was a man at the station, and he was leaning up against the wall reading a newspaper. And I apparently walked up to him. He hadn't seen me. I walked up and looked at him and then positioned myself in exactly the same lean as he had, to kind of, and I guess I was playing with, I want to see what you're experiencing. I want to experience what you're experiencing. So I was just copying the guy, leaning up against him, or up against the same wall as he was, crossed my legs in the same manner. So I think I've probably always been a bit cheeky. I've always been I've always been a bit intrepid and a bit put myself out there a
Mm.
bit. And I talked to everyone when I was a child. Always had something to say.
What would you encourage people that are, listening or viewing us to do about connecting?
To do about connecting. Get
Yeah.
curious. Be curious. Be
Okay.
curious about other people's experience. Because so I grew up with two boys that lived next door to me, and my brother. So I was the youngest of three. There were three boys and me, the youngest of four. Um, and that kind of curiosity to kind of, it's to mimic and copy and find out what they're experiencing. I always wanted to keep up with them, and this is something that I think is really vital to the whole process. And I use this in the context of coaching. When I'm coaching somebody,
Mm.
The energetic flow has to be coming from me to you. That's service. When I'm in service of another human being, the energy moves from me to you. And I've kind of developed in front of me, I have a metaphorical compass. So you've got the red end of a compass that always points to north, as it were. That side of the compass has to be pointing at you. As soon as I feel that compass moving and it starts pointing towards me, I'm out of alignment now in connecting. I can't connect with anyone when that energy is pointing towards me. And I think this getting really curious about others and having the energy moving out from you towards them is the secret to being able to connect, truly connect. And if you're shy and if you don't know what to say and if you're a bit timid, it's because, I'm going to be tough, you've got the compass facing you.
And what does that mean for people?
I think they get so focused on their own feelings and who they're going to be seen as. Are people going to judge them?
Mm.
What will somebody think? I can't say that. I couldn't possibly. It's being seen
Mm.
as lacking or as not good enough or as too something, too big, too bold, too brash. It's a fear state of
Okay.
how people are being seen or how they perceive they're being seen, because it's only ever their perception. It is never the reality. So they kind of get blinded by this fear of how they're showing up
Mm.
and how they're going to be judged. And I think to spin that and keep that energy going out, always going out towards the other person. If you've got two people focusing on each other,
Mm.
there's going to be connection. If you've got two people inwardly facing, worrying about themselves, there can be no connection.
Mm. And what do to make this as a habit, what do you encourage people to do?
It's to notice, and I find that compass thing quite useful as
Mm.
a literal imagination between me and the other person. But it is a noticing of when it turns back towards me.
Okay. If there's one thing that you would encourage people to do, right after they watch this conversation between us around connecting and developing, their connecting skills, if there's such a thing, or they're developing their curiosity around connecting, what would that one or two things be?
Take some form of action, and that might be someone you haven't called in a while that you've been thinking, oh, I really should, I really
Mm.
must, and notice, why haven't you? And there may be legitimate kind of, or they keep slipping my mind, but if it's there's an icky sticky feeling about, oh, there's something in the way,
Mm.
notice whether that energy is pointing towards yourself or whether it's pointing out towards them.
Mm.
So it might be, but they haven't called me. Why should I?
Mm.
And then notice, oh, actually, that's about me. Because that other person, or maybe I've done something wrong and they haven't called me. Maybe they don't like me anymore. Maybe they're ignoring me. And this is all about me. All of this is
Mm.
about me. What if I got curious and thought, I haven't spoken to them in a while. They've been really quiet. I wonder if they're okay.
Mm.
I wonder how they're doing. I wonder what's happening in their life that has meant they haven't contacted me, and point it back out towards that person.
I love
And
that.
that could be anywhere. It could be in your personal life. It could be a business thing. It could be a client you've made a proposal and you haven't heard anything from them.
Mm.
If it's like, oh, well, maybe I did something wrong. Maybe they didn't like the price. Maybe they didn't like what I was offering. That's all about me. If I'm in real true service of the other person, I want to know what's going on for them. And that's not to coerce or push them or anything, but it's a genuine, if I'm in service, what could I have done better? I'm happy with the no. How could I have helped you? How could I have served you better?
Thank you, Fiona. That's been. I'm hearing so much value in what you're sharing. Being in service, being genuinely curious about other people. I love the example with the compass and the direction, and being conscious as to if this is something that I'm being you know self-absorbed or looking inwards versus looking
Needy.
outwards, and or looking to the other
We've all
person.
done it. That's the thing. We
Me,
can
me,
all
me, me,
recognize
me.
it. Yeah. What about me? Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. I love that the way that you shared that.
That will cause the division when you point towards yourself all the time.
Love
That
that.
will break the connection.
I can't be, I can't help myself being a coach. So what has been useful for you, Fiona, today?
What's been really useful for me is to actually have you ask me these questions, because I probably haven't necessarily thought about what makes
Mm,
me connect well and what it is that breaks connection for me. So, as with everyone, the answers are always within you. It's just
oh
the
yeah.
right questions that are gonna elicit those answers. So I really appreciate the opportunity to have been asked these questions.
Oh yeah. You're welcome. I really appreciate, you taking part in this, in this project. That is, it's such a, like we talked about, it's such a seemingly simple, subject, but there's so many people, having challenges with it. And I remember when I was a child, the way that I could not relate with anybody, but my curiosity was bigger than my fear.
Right.
So, and I'm still learning, and there's no end to that journey. So I really appreciate you sharing your knowledge and your experiences, with in this channel that everybody would like to, watch and get their own insights from our conversation. Thank you very much,
You're really
Fiona.
welcome. Really welcome, Stephanos.
And our next conversation should be, the next episode of Levels of Connection should be in person on a beach in Cyprus, and we can film it there. How does that sound?
Absolutely.
it's a it's an open invitation. So whenever we do the next one, you should be in person in Cyprus, or me in London, or wherever
Or
we
you
meet
in
next.
London. Yeah. Who knows? Who knows?
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for watching and enjoying today's episode with Fiona Ross. You can subscribe and comment below, and I'll make sure to read and reply to all comments. Thank you for your continuous support and interest in Levels of Connection. See you in the next episode. See you soon.